How did Rhaenyra Targaryen go from planning a peaceful takeover of King's Landing?
With him gone, Alicent will open the gates of the Red Keep and surrender Aegon to me. I will then take his head and the throne.
To sitting on the Iron Throne with Otto Hightower's severed head staring up at her. Yikes, is that a spoiler? In this video, we're going to break down the entire story of House of the Dragon Season 3. And if you haven't seen the first two seasons or just need a little refresher, make sure to check out our previous video on the story so far. Season 3 kicks off in the mist-covered valleys of the Vale, where Rhaenyra Targaryen has given up the safety of the road to hunt the wild dragon known as Sheepstealer. Up until this point, Rhaenyra has spent her life watching the rest of her family take to the sky while she stays on the ground looking up at them. Taming Sheepstealer is her chance to finally join them. She eventually tracks down Sheepstealer, feeding on the rocks. Unlike the trained dragons raised in Dragonstone, this one has never been domesticated. This is like inviting a bear into your house and expecting it to fetch your slippers and newspaper. Rhaenyra sneaks slowly and speaks High Valyrian to calm Sheepstealer down. At first, it looks like she pulled off the Pokemon equivalent of a Master Ball, until she climbs on the dragon's back. At the same time, another desperate journey is taking place. The burned and broken King Aegon is being smuggled away in secret by Larys Strong, who knows that staying in the capital leaves the king at the mercy of his own brother, Aemond Targaryen, who has gotten a little too comfortable ruling the Seven Kingdoms and isn't willing to hand control back over. The escape seems to be working until Black Loyalist soldiers stop their cart and order the travelers to bend the knee to Queen Rhaenyra. Aegon, however, lets his pride get in the way of his survival.
The captain said kneel.
The sneaky Larys quickly outs his companion as King Aegon, after producing the royal crown as proof. When the guards consider killing both men for the bounty, Larys argues that a living king is worth more than a corpse. He persuades them to carry Aegon towards Dragonstone through Duskendale as a hostage, buying both men a little more time. On Dragonstone, Rhaenyra tells Jacaerys Velaryon, who's also known as Jace, and the Black Council about Alicent's secret visit. Alicent offered a way into King's Landing and promised that the city would be taken peacefully and with limited bloodshed.
With him gone, Alicent will open the gates of the Red Keep and surrender Aegon to me. I will then take his head and the throne.
Rhaenyra wants to give the plan time, but Jace sees another delay after months of loss and doesn't trust his mother's faith in her former friend. In fairness, I wouldn't either. Rhaenyra intends to fly for the capital in 2 days. Jace argues that she is the queen and can't keep making it easy for the enemy to attack her. At this point, he's already lost Luke and refuses to risk losing his mother as well. If Rhaenyra dies, the Black Cause could collapse with her. Back in the capital, Alicent Hightower discovers that Aemond has tightened his grip on the city. She begs him to choose peace and leave before Rhaenyra's dragons arrive. But Aemond refuses, convinced that fear and Vhagar can still protect the Greens. In the Riverlands, Daemon Targaryen and the United River Lords attack the Lannister force. Now that the River Lords have finally stopped fighting among themselves, the Lannister army is wiped out. Roderick Dustin arrives carrying the severed head of Jason Lannister, proving that one of the Greens' most important Western commanders has been taken out. Meanwhile, the Sheepstealer is flying off into the mist, rolling and diving while Rhaenyra clings to its back without a saddle. When they finally land, the dragon throws her hard onto the rocks. Rhaenyra orders Sheepstealer to obey and pleads that they need to go back to Dragonstone, but the wild dragon just flies away, leaving her cold, exhausted, and alone. In the Red Keep, Alicent tries a more practical solution to force peace by forging an order in Aemond's name, commanding Ormond Hightower to stop moving forward. Far out in the Gullet, Lord Corlys Velaryon sails with Alan, the illegitimate son he refused to acknowledge for most of his life. After Alan saved his life, Corlys finally apologizes for abandoning him and his brother. Nothing earns a father's attention more than saving his life, I guess. The moment is then interrupted when the Triarchy fleet ambushes their ship. It's commanded by Sharako Lohar, who is driven by an old hatred of the sea snake. Outnumbered, Corlys sends a raven for help.
Hours after Rhaena was left alone, Sheepstealer comes back and offers her part of the regurgitated sheep and roasts it with dragonfire.
Yummy. The starving Rhaena devours it, making it a strange bonding experience for the dragon and its new rider. After chowing down, she climbs back onto Sheepstealer, and the pair set off towards Dragonstone, even though Rhaena still has no real control over where the dragon goes. Meanwhile, Alicent realizes that Aemond will never willingly surrender the city, so she changes tactics. She plays into his pride, suggesting that a true warrior should go after Daemon at Harrenhal, instead of hiding behind King's Landing's walls. Even though Aemond knows he's being manipulated, he still takes the bait. Before leaving, we get one of the most uncomfortable moments of the season. He kisses his mother directly on the lips. That lasted way too long. The new dragon riders Hugh, Ulf, and Adam wait at Harrenhal for Daemon to come back. While there, they spot a strange man with antlers in the trees, which is bizarre even for Harrenhal. Alice Rivers, the mysterious witch who was following Daemon everywhere in the last season, suddenly appears and warns them that they're missing the battle at Dragonstone, sending all three riders towards the coast. At Dragonstone, a raven arrives with the dire news of the Triarchy attack. Rhaenyra immediately prepares to fly, but Jace refuses to watch another member of his family die, so he orders Sir Laurent Marbrand to lock the queen inside her room. Rhaenyra slams on the door and demands to be let out, but Marbrand isn't budging from his order.
I may appear to have the weak and feeble body of a woman, but I possess the heart and spirit of a king.
With his mother trapped, Jace mounts Veermax and flies beside Baela on Moondancer. Corlys uses his knowledge of the coastline to survive the passage, but Lohar's ship follows and the fighting becomes close and brutal. Jace and Baela shoot dragonfire across the enemy fleet while the enemy fires scorpion bolts into the sky. Sharako Lohar manages to hook a line to Veermax, but cuts through the line and frees both dragon and rider. Below on the sea, Corlys uses his experience of the waters to lure Lohar's ship into a narrow rocky channel. While it looked close, Corlys' ship managed to escape the passage, leaving Lohar's ship to hit the sharp rocks. The Triarchy aren't done yet. Lohar orders the crew to drop excess weight, including the armor-clad Lannister forces. Seems a bit harsh. I'm sure if she asked, they would have happily slipped into something less metallic. Lohar's plan worked, and the flagship manages to catch up. Corlys' ship can't get away, and the Triarchy ship crashes straight into the Sea Snake's ship. Then, the Valyrian vessel is boarded, and a bloody battle aboard the sinking ship breaks out. Corlys and Lohar face off against each other. When the damaged ship breaks apart, Corlys is thrown into the sea, and Alan takes his father's place in the fight. He has no time to celebrate, however, as while this battle has been raging, a new dragon and rider have entered the fight, Rhaena and Sheepstealer. She wants to help her grandfather, but the wild dragon is too feral. Sheepstealer starts burning all ships. Baela mistakes Sheepstealer for an enemy and gives chase on Moondancer, while Rhaena screams for both her dragon and her sister to stop. Jace is the first person to recognize Rhaena. He stops Veermax from attacking Sheepstealer, saving his cousin, but the maneuver carries him too close to the Triarchy ship. This is when another weighted spear tears into Veermax and drags the dragon and rider down into the burning sea. Jace unclips himself as Veermax sinks and manages to reach the surface. He has survived the dragon's fall, but nearby Triarchy archers spot the prince in the water. From there, the young prince is swiftly and brutally taken out. As the battle rages on, Corlys is missing beneath the waves, and Rhaenyra is still locked away in Dragonstone, unaware that another of her sons has been killed. News of what happened eventually arrives at Dragonstone. Baela returns with Jace's body, and Rhaenyra's last hope that her eldest son somehow survived disappears the moment she sees him. She throws herself over him, screaming in grief, then turns that grief on everyone who helped keep her away from the battle. Understandably, Rhaenyra blames Sir Laurent and the council for obeying Jace over their queen.
My life must be forfeit.
And what good would that do? Will it wake my son?
She knows exactly why Jace did it, however. He believed her life mattered more than his. Rhaenyra shuts herself away and starts wondering what the crown is worth after it has already cost her 2 sons. Terrified by the part she and Sheepstealer played in putting Jace in the firing line of the Triarchy forces, Rhaena flies to the Eyrie and begs Lady Jane Arryn to hide her. But the Lady of the Vale brutally rejects her. She previously agreed to shelter Rhaena and Rhaenyra's younger children in return for a dragon to protect the land. But the feral Sheepstealer was never part of that deal. She has no interest in protecting someone who helped cause the death of the Queen's son. Can you blame her? At Harrenhal, Daemon hears that Jace is dead. Before leaving, he meets Alice Rivers, who asks him to have Rhaenyra give her Harrenhal.
Done the Queen a service. I put 40,000 rivermen at her call.
Daemon gives a deliberately vague promise that he will see what he can do, but Alis realizes that he believes a commoner won't be given a castle. Before she leaves, she tells him never to come back. I really don't think upsetting a suspected witch is a good idea. Elsewhere, Aegon and Larys are still prisoners on the road when Triarchy soldiers attack the convoy of the Blacks as they're bringing them to Queen Rhaenyra. The ambush gives Larys the opening he needs, and he leads the wounded king into the wilderness. Larys wants to hide near Duskendale, but Aegon wants to go to Rook's Nest, as he believes Criston Cole will still be loyal to him. Larys, on the other hand, isn't too sure that they can make the long journey without being captured again. After scouring the watery battlefield, Alan, Adam, and Bela find Corlys still alive. Corlys can no longer pretend that Alan is just a good sailor. He gives Alan the Valyrian name and publicly acknowledges him as his son. Adam, on the other hand, doesn't get the same honor. Awkward. Inside King's Landing, Alicent begins carrying out the agreement she made with Rhaenyra. She persuades the Gold Cloaks to stand down when the Blacks arrive, removing the city's first line of defense and making it easier for Rhaenyra to swoop right in. Daemon returns to Dragonstone and first finds Hugh and Ulf, who left their posts to reach the battle after Alice appeared. He is furious with them and then clashes with Mysaria, his former lover. He hates the fact that she has become Rhaenyra's trusted advisor and mistress of the Whisperers. Exes, am I right? Daemon finds out that Vhagar has left King's Landing, heading towards Harrenhal. He plans on tracking Aemon down, but first he visits Rhaenyra, who can't leave her bed. He forces her to face the war and tells her that giving up now would make Jace and Luke's deaths meaningless. Then in High Valyrian, he reveals the vision Alice showed him in the last season, the Song of Ice and Fire. The dead beyond the wall and a future Targaryen carrying 3 dragons out of flame. Of course, those who have watched Game of Thrones will recognize her as the Mother of Dragons, Daenerys.
For anyone who wants a refresher on the future of the Targaryen lineage, you could check out our upcoming video that focuses on the entire story of Daenerys. Yep, the Mother of Dragons.
Until the vision, Daemon believed that her father, King Viserys, named Rhaenyra queen because he loved her. But the vision showed him that Viserys also believed her bloodline was needed to fight the darkness coming from the north. That's enough to pull the queen out of bed and back into the war. Rhaenyra and Daemon fly for King's Landing with Hugh and Ulf guarding them on Vermithor and Silverwing. In King's Landing, Alicent prepares to leave before the Iron Throne is swiftly taken. That is, until Jasper Wilde discovers what she's doing and tries to assault her in her own chamber. Alicent fights him off until Maester Orwyle, the realm's highest-ranking healer, comes in with guards. Luckily, Jasper is dragged away before he can carry out his sick plan. Knowing that it won't be long until the dragons arrive, Alicent tells Helaena that she needs to use her royal title to order the wall guards not to fire at Rhaenyra and the dragons.
At Harrenhal, Aemond arrives on Vhagar, expecting to crush Daemon and his army. Vhagar burns everyone in sight, and Aemond enters the dining hall to find Sir Simon Strong calmly eating.
I guess he's a snacker when he's anxious. When Simon tells him that Daemon is gone, Aemond stabs him and kills the others in the room. That's when one of the men stabs a blade into Aemon's back, and the prince collapses in front of Alice. At the capital, the gates are opened and the dragons aren't fired at, exactly as Alicent promised. Daemon kills the Kingsguard, who are still trying to protect the Red Keep, while Rhaenyra tries to reassure the frightened people that she has come to make things right. In the throne room, another line of knights blocks her path until Sir Luther Largent and the Gold Cloaks enter behind them and declare they are still loyal to Daemon, who previously commanded them. The knights drop their swords, realizing that the keep has already been lost. There's just one thing left to do: kill King Aegon. This is where they discover that the injured king is already gone with Larys. Alicent, Helaena, and her son, Rhaenyra, are close to escaping, but they're caught before they can leave. Meanwhile, prisoners are dragged out of the dungeons, including Jasper Wilde and Otto Hightower. Those schemers began the entire takeover of the Greens in the first place. Talk about a welcome home gift. Daemon whispers to Rhaenyra that Otto must die in Aegon's place and reminds her that the entire throne room is watching. With no other choice, Rhaenyra takes Daemon's sword and swings at him. Her first blow fails to cut his head off. Sobbing and, let's face it, kind of snotty, she swings again and fatally beheads the traitor. Daemon then wastes no time in killing Jasper Wilde. The Iron Throne now belongs to Rhaenyra. She steps through blood, climbs the steps, and finally claims the birthright her father promised her. The already emotional moment is made even worse when Alicent and Helaena are brought before the new queen. Between them is the decapitated body of her father. The battle for the Red Keep was easily won thanks to Alicent, but after this, the war is about to reach new levels. With King's Landing in the hands of the Blacks, Daemon turns his attention to the Reach. He corners Lord Ormond Hightower with Caraxes and the dragons ridden by Hugh and Ulf. Ormond has a large army, but 3 dragons mean instant checkmate. So he drops to one knee and swears loyalty to Queen Rhaenyra. Daemon demands that Ormond hand over Alicent's youngest son, Daeron Targaryen, who has been raised in Old Town by the Lord. Ormond gives him a frightened, silver-haired boy and tells him to be brave. Convinced he has captured another Green Prince, Daemon accepts the hostage and orders the army to go home. In King's Landing, Rhaenyra moves into the chambers that Viserys and her mother, Aemma Arryn, shared. The rooms bring back painful memories of her childhood. Daemon introduces Daeron. Rhaenyra notices that the boy is anxious and silent. Daemon thinks they should kill him to remove another potential rival, but Rhaenyra refuses to decide on the spot. In her defense, there are a lot of problems that need to be fixed before she can properly rule. At her first full small council meeting, Rhaenyra learns that Tylan emptied the royal treasury of all the gold before the city fell. The crown controls the Red Keep, but has almost no money to pay soldiers, buy food, or fund the coronation Rhaenyra hoped would legitimize her rule. They took the capital, but it's been left in a terrible state. The people are still starving after Rhaenyra blocked any ships from coming in, and Corlys doesn't have enough ships to safely bring supplies in after the Battle of the Gullet. Rhaenyra comes up with a plan.
Send to all the great houses. In fact, tell them their queen demands tribute. Remind them who now commands the realm.
She also offers a bounty she can't even afford for Aemond, who is still missing, and for the rider of Sheepstealer, promising Harrenhal to whoever kills Aemond. Little does she know, it's actually Daemon's daughter, Rhaena. Rhaenyra lets Daemon appoint a new Queensguard and orders Massaria to get rid of servants who are still loyal to the Hightowers. And as she leaves the council, rats run across the chamber, a result of Aegon's hasty slaughter of all the city's rat catchers in the last season. Not exactly a quiet first day for the queen. Alicent and Helaena are questioned about Aegon, Aemond, and the missing gold. Rhaenyra takes Alicent's advice and decides to declare Aegon dead because recognizing him as alive would leave the realm with 2 crowned rulers. She then tells Alicent and Helaena that until Aemond is captured and killed, they have to stay at the Red Keep as prisoners. Very well looked after prisoners. During the interrogation, grief briefly overwhelms Rhaenyra. She sees a boy and mistakes him for Jace, only for the illusion to vanish when she looks again. Rhaenyra then seeks the blessing of High Septon Balmon. She doesn't ask for an extravagant coronation, only a private anointing with the 7 holy oils. But let's face it, that's mainly down to the lack of funds. Otherwise, she would probably have a life-size dragon-shaped cake ordered. The problem is the High Septon refuses because he already crowned Aegon and no remains have been found to prove the king is dead. When Rhaenyra points to her dragons and victory as proof that the gods favor her, Balmon calls dragons profane creatures born from pride and dark magic. He then pushes her hands away and warns her to not make an enemy of the faith. At a private dinner, Corlys finally tells Rhaenyra the truth about Alan and Adam.
Alan of Hull and his brother Adam are my sons. They are born of a woman, a shipwright I met on my earlier travels.
He asks the queen to legitimize both of them and name Alan as his heir so that House Valerion will pass to him. Rhaenyra refuses to decide straight away, worried that raising two lowborns could anger the same nobles she depends on to stabilize the kingdom. The next day, Rhaenyra gets ready for her duties, but realizes that her period has started. Not only does she feel uncomfortable, but she once again is reminded that she is a woman, the reason why everyone underestimates her. The small folk come before the queen with the same complaint. They are starving while wealthy households hoard grain and meat. Rhaenyra and Daemon then formally knight Ulf, Hugh, and Adam, giving them titles. Hugh then asks about a home and his missing wife, but Rhaenyra is too overwhelmed to give him a clear answer. Alicent asks Rhaenyra to send Otto's remains to Old Town so he can be buried near her mother. Rhaenyra agrees and then asks how Alicent handled requests while Viserys was ill. Alicent warns her that winning a throne and ruling from it are two very different things. The next big problem that needs solving is that of the food shortage, so Rhaenyra invites the wealthy supporters to a banquet. But instead of a feast, each guest gets the same food many poor families have been forced to eat. I've got a feeling some people might have changed their minds about the vegetarian option. She then tells the nobles that the gold cloaks are raiding their estates and confiscating all of their hoarded supplies so the food can be shared out. As she leaves the hall, she bumps into Sir Torrhen Manderly, who actually praises the plan, even though it will also affect him. Torrhen points out that the blockade that Rhaenyra ordered was the reason for the food shortage in the first place, and he's not wrong. Daemon thinks the food plan is temporary and that it will no doubt make several powerful enemies within the capital. He also tells her that their 6 dragons give them enough power to conquer far beyond Westeros, even going as far as saying people will see them as gods. But Rhaenyra believes that there's such a thing as having too much power, which can only end in destruction. The next day, Rhaenyra distributes food in the streets and receives the cheers she wanted. Corlys is less grateful. He asks Rhaenyra again to legitimize his sons, but she refuses outright. Understandably, Corlys is furious. He has given Rhaenyra ships, wealth, children, and now almost his own life. Not to mention his wife, Princess Rhaenys, who died in the last season at the Battle of Rook's Nest. Corlys throws her own history back at her. Rhaenyra demanded that the realm accept Jace, Luke, and Joffrey, yet she expects Alan and Adam to stay a secret. Yeah, that's pretty hypocritical. Rhaenyra later tells Alicent that the captured Darien will be spared and sent to the Wall, then arranges for mother and son to meet before he is sent to the north. But there's a slight snag.
You don't know this boy. But he is not Darren.
That's right, the Blacks were tricked by Lord Ormond, who handed over a random boy. Dark roots are then discovered beneath the bleached hair, and the captive admits that Ormond forced him to pretend to be the prince. A messenger then turns up to deliver even more bad news. Ormond has taken advantage of the distraction and taken Tumbleton with the genuine Darien and his dragon Tessarion. The High Towers decide to play dirty by holding the town's population as protection, knowing Rhaenyra can't just wipe them out with dragonfire without killing thousands of civilians. Inside Tumbleton, Ormond Hightower's army is forcing families to take in soldiers. Food is seized and every street becomes part of the Green's military camp. Ormond uses the home of Lord and Lady Footley as his headquarters, making it clear that their titles mean nothing. While taking a bath, Ormond tells the Footleys that he completely controls their town. The real Darren, now with dyed hair, is finally revealed. He's being used as a political weapon, giving the Greens an heir they can follow if Aegon and Aemon are dead. Despite being a prince, however, he's treated more like a prisoner by the cruel Ormond. In King's Landing, Rhaenyra's council discusses how to retake Tumbleton without burning the hostages. Orwyle suggests using the Riverlands army instead of dragons, proving his usefulness and earning himself a place at the council table. Mysaria argues that they need someone to blame for the lack of funds, so Rhaenyra decides to make Torrhen Manderly the Master of Coin. Considering they only met once for a few minutes, that must be the shortest job interview in history. Rhaenyra asks Alicent about what she knows about Ormond. She remembers that he is very sensitive to smells, which explains why he is constantly sniffing whatever scent is inside his silver box. Corlys Velaryon didn't go to the previous council meeting because he's still angry with Rhaenyra.
In retaliation, the sea snake abandons his post and sails out to haunt any surviving Triarchy raiders from the gullet. While gone, he sends Alan to speak for him in the capital, forcing the son he ignored for years to be the voice of House Valerian. Far from the capital, Aegon and Larys finally reach Rook's Rest, where Aegon finds the remains of his dragon Sunfire, still where he fell after Aemond rained fire down on his own brother, leaving him for dead.
But you must accept what is before you. Wake up. You wanted to see him. You've seen him. He's dead.
No.
Over in the Riverlands, Criston and Gwaine arrive at the Harrenhal and find Alice Rivers in control of the ruins. She tells them that Aemond is gone and that Rhaenyra is taking King's Landing. Criston decides that the only path left is to attack the Rivermen and the Winter Wolves before they get to the Reach, even though his exhausted army is already falling apart, and they would be unbelievably outnumbered. Back with Aegon and Larys, the pair eventually arrive at the labor camp where nobody recognizes the Scarred King. As yet another reminder of his spectacular fall from grace, Aegon is forced to sort human waste under the orders of Janos, a cruel overseer who later orders him to kiss a manure-covered boot after he dared to speak up when he was given no food after a long day of sorting. Over in Tumbleton, a green soldier attacks Hugh Hammer's wife, who's staying with her brother. After the townspeople were promised that the soldiers wouldn't cause trouble, Ormond makes an example of him. He has the man seized and sentences him to have his arm broken and his manhood removed. The townspeople now know that Ormond will punish his own men even if he does it with the same brutality he uses on everyone else. In King's Landing, Rhaenyra continues searching for a way to convince the Faith to support her. She talks to Orwyle about the High Septon's connection to Oldtown, and the Hightower suspecting that the Faith's opinion may be tied to his relationship with Oldtown.
Some influence a naming of the High Septon, but to remove him altogether would surely incite the Faith, and therefore the faithful.
Rhaenyra leaves the meeting, suspecting that Oldtown is helping to keep the Faith opposed to her. Alan and Rhaenyra find unexpected common ground while discussing their fathers.
Corlys buried himself in voyages and battles, while Viserys escaped into his model of Old Valyra.
Alan waited years for Corlys to acknowledge him, while Rhaenyra spent hers trying to earn Viserys' full attention. Daemon travels to the Vale looking for some gold to fund Rhaenyra's rule. He is successful, and after leaving, Caraxes senses another dragon and leads him to the cave where Rhea is hiding with Sheepstealer.
Rhaenyra believes this dragon and his rider are the reason Jace is dead.
Rhaena confesses what happened at the Gullet and begs Daemon to let the world think she died, terrified that Rhaenyra will blame her for the death of Jace and Corlys' crew. Before taking off with Sheepstealer, she asks her father to leave her in exile and not tell the queen. And speaking of Rhaenyra, Ulf speaks with her, asking for small favors for his friends to impress everyone at the tavern. The request backfires, however, and Rhaenyra bans him from roaming the city to drink, ultimately confining him to the castle. Ironically, he is now the noble he lied about before being accepted by Silverwing, but he has now lost all bragging rights. When Daemon returns to King's Landing, he drops a severed head on the table in front of Rhaenyra. It turns out he killed a shepherd to falsely claim it belonged to Sheepstealer's rider in order to protect his daughter. The queen accepts the explanation despite wanting to see the man herself and dish out the punishment. She then orders that the Vale's gold will be given to the small folk instead of paying and recruiting the city watch members. Daemon isn't pleased, but as he just lied to his wife and queen, he doesn't want to push his luck by arguing her decision. Rhaenyra visits Alicent to tell her Otto's body has been sent to Oldtown and gives her Otto's ring. After the queen leaves, Helena walks to her in her nightclothes, and Alicent notices for the first time that her daughter is pregnant with her husband's and brother's child. This means another child in Aegon's bloodline could become either a hostage or a claimant to the throne. At Tumbleton, Hugh watches the occupation from a distance, torn between his oath to Rhaenyra and the knowledge that his wife is trapped inside. He has one of the largest dragons in the world, but using Vermithor would risk the lives of innocent people. Inside the town's walls, Ormond wants to make sure Darren can live up to his role as prince, well, as a puppet. He brings Hugh's bound brother-in-law before him and orders the boy to kill him for hitting a Hightower soldier. Basically, he's ordering him to kill a man who was defending his sister.
Please.
Darren stabs the man, terrified of what Ormond would do if he didn't. The act now makes Darren and his dragon part of the Tumbleton invasion. Tumbleton now holds the Green Army, its hostages, a future heir to the throne, and Tessarion. At Harrenhal, Aemond wakes up terrified after seeing horrific visions of his brother Aegon in a fire. Alice tries to calm him down, cradling him like a child. Thanks to Alice, he has survived the stab wound. But he now has a fever and is dependent on the woman he once would have threatened. He also calls Alice Mother, which is just so gross. In the Red Keep, Orwell secretly brings moon tea to Alicent for Helaena. Alicent wants to use it to end the pregnancy before Rhaenyra or the court can use the child, but Helaena refuses. She says she has seen Aemond at Harrenhal, burning without fire, and protects her stomach, insisting that the baby belongs to her. Elsewhere, Rhaenyra is still having problems thrown at her. Jace had promised Harrenhal to Lady Sabitha Frey in exchange for allowing the Winter Wolves to use the bridge at the Twins and enter the Riverlands. But now Rhaenyra refuses to honor the arrangement, coldly saying that her son's promises were buried with him. Sabitha gets a seat at the small council instead. This will give the Freys influence, while Rhaenyra keeps Harrenhal for the bounty on Aemond. Around the council table, Adam and Baela share the news that Vhagar is burning the countryside, but nobody knows whether Aemond is ordering the attacks or whether the ancient dragon is doing it herself. Rhaenyra orders Daemon to investigate, and he refuses in front of the entire council because he wants to find out who murdered 2 gold cloaks in Flea Bottom.
I will go once I have dealt with this business in the city. Our fallen soldiers and accounting must be made. Do you not...
Their argument continues in private. Daemon thinks it is the result of Rhaenyra ordering Sir Luther Largent to find out who is leaving graffiti on the walls insulting the queen. The officer does what he is told, but he does it in a brutal way, punishing people with no proof. Daemon tells her that acting out of revenge and rushing to find Aemond is making her ignore the problems forming within her kingdom. After Daemon storms off, Rhaenyra is told that the young Joffrey Valerian has returned from the Vale and is asking for his mother. Rhaenyra, however, isn't ready to see him, unable to face another son while grieving the 2 she's lost. Deep within the forests surrounding Rook's Rest, Aegon and Larys are headed towards Wendish Town after hearing about a sighting of Vhagar. Larys isn't happy with the idea, and he tells his companion that they should just go back to the camp. Aegon tells him that he wants to track down and kill Aemond, or die trying. Meanwhile, Mysaria's network learns that Orwell secretly gave something to Alicent, learning that it's moon tea. Mysaria wonders which one of them is pregnant. Alicent quickly drinks the tea herself, but Mysaria realizes that something isn't right. In the city streets, after Daemon speaks privately with Sir Luther Largent, Luther admits that the rest of the gold cloaks are angry about not being paid. Can you really blame them? No money and a bullseye on their backs? The HR department must be busy. The situation quickly becomes worse. They discover that more gold cloaks have been murdered and disemboweled in broad daylight. The news of the killings reaches Tumbleton, proving that Ormond is behind the attacks. After reading the message, Ormond plays a type of chess game with Darren and deliberately tests the boy's confidence. Darren wins, then apologizes out of fear. Ormond tells him to never apologize for victory and reveals that he has already started printing coins with Darren's face on them.
The son of Viserys, the beacon shining from the high tower.
Talk about overconfidence. In the gardens, Alicent tells Helaena that she has bribed a maid with a necklace to help them escape. The plan is to reach the secret passage in Baela's room, which was previously Aemon's. The problem is Jaehaera is locked away separately, so it would mean Helaena would have to leave her daughter behind. Something she isn't willing to do. Alicent argues that she will be safer at King's Landing, and Helaena reluctantly agrees. Over in the forest surrounding Rook's Rest, Larys has had enough of Aegon's pity party about how his brother was given all the advantages while he got nothing. Up until now, he has kept his thoughts to himself, but now Larys has had enough.
But worse than that, you are a terrible man.
Well, we were all thinking it, right? But he is still a person the Greens can use, and Aegon accepts the insult because pretending otherwise won't put him back on the throne. So they return to the camp, and the injured king agrees to Larys' plan to hire a ship to Essos. This is where they are reunited with Tywin Lannister, who managed to survive the gullet. At King's Landing, Alicent and Helaena disguise themselves as maids and prepare to escape, only to find Mysaria waiting outside their room. Alicent tries to persuade her not to give them up, warning that Rhaenyra will always choose Daemon over her, and Mysaria leaves without saying what she'll do. More bounty hunters come looking for Aemond at the Harrenhal, looking to kill the prince and win the castle. Alice tries to scare them off, but one of them tries to attack her. Luckily for her, Aemond has recovered enough to take them on. At the labor camp, Tyland argues that sailing to Essos isn't going to help the Green's cause. Larys tells them that he's in no fit state to stay in Westeros. At that moment, Janos, the labor camp overseer, secretly searches Aegon's bag and finds the crown. He now knows who he is, but Aegon quickly stabs him before he can tell anyone else. In King's Landing, Daemon gathers the unpaid gold cloaks. He tells them that they are the only thing stopping King's Landing from falling into chaos. When one soldier points out that hunters are supposed to get paid, Daemon promises that Rhaenyra will repay them twice over once the wars are won.
This great empire grows and the 7 kingdoms become 9, become 12, become the new Valyria. When I return with wagons spilling over with silks and silver.
The speech wins them over for the moment, and the men are divided into groups so nobody has to patrol the streets alone. In the Riverlands, Criston Cole and the other troops move towards the Reach, but discover that rivermen have already crossed it and destroyed it behind them. His soldiers are hungry, wounded, and beginning to lose faith in their commander. Gwaine finally accuses Criston of leading the army towards death instead of a real victory. After all, they are outnumbered, outmaneuvered, and joining Ormond at Tumbleton would save their lives.
When we set out, we were doomed to death and defeat.
I've offered you sanctuary, or at least the hope of one.
You have offered me service to your house.
He wants to die a glorious death in battle, so that he'll be remembered. Basically, Criston has already given up and is willing to take the rest of his men down with him. Gwaine doesn't want to die, however, so he decides to leave in hopes of reaching his family. Daemon is later informed that a suspect in the Gold Cloak murders has been found. To get answers, he tortures the man, first taking out his eyeball. The prisoner eventually breaks and tells him that he was acting in the name of the king. At first they think it's Aegon, but the man tells him it's actually Daeron Targaryen. He proves it by showing them one of the newly minted coins. Now he knows that Ormond Hightower is the one paying men in Flea Bottom to slaughter the guards. Daemon takes the coin to Rhaenyra and warns her that the money is coming from the Reach. After the failed escape, Alicent goes to bed, but one of the cats brought in to combat the rat problem hears movement behind the wall, and Helaena notices a draft moving the candle flame. She and Alicent open up a hidden panel and follow the passage. They think they've escaped, but that's when they discover the passage has been bricked up and the secret panel has closed. They are now stuck in the dark, in a place unlikely to be found. Meanwhile, Daemon goes to find Luther Largent and the 25 gold cloaks, only to find them brutally murdered and arranged around a table beneath the message, "Feast for traitors." The men who trusted and followed Daemon are dead, and a large number of the gold cloaks have been wiped out by those still hiding within King's Landing. Criston Cole's exhausted army is still moving through the Riverlands. The soldiers find what looks to be a field of dead rivermen, but as they check the bodies, they all suddenly jump up and start fighting. It was a trap, and they just fell right into it. Archers then fill the high ground while Lord Oscar Tully and the United Riverlands block any way of escape. Criston knows this is the moment he and his forces die. He wraps Alicent's handkerchief around his sword and offers to fight 2 men at once, trying to turn defeat into the honorable death he had been dreaming of. But Oscar won't let him have the glorious end. It's Alicent Blackwood who is firing, shooting the last arrow through his face. The remaining soldiers charge the surrounding blacks and meet their end. In King's Landing, the council discusses the massacre of Luther Largent and the Gold Cloaks. Daemon is furious at the loss of his friend and wants to retaliate by burning Tumbleton. But Mysaria warns that killing the hostages would turn people against Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra orders Daemon to find the people behind the killings instead of attacking the Reach and getting revenge. Alicent and Helaena are found after their failed escape. Alicent reveals the pregnancy to Rhaenyra, hoping honesty will protect her daughter. Rhaenyra decides to confine them more tightly and warns that if the pregnancy becomes public, political pressure might force her to act against Helaena and the unborn child. Alicent asks to be sent away, but with Aemond still missing and Ormond killing the city guards, the queen says that her family is the crown's biggest enemy. Rhaenyra later tells Mysaria about the pregnancy,
Mysaria hides the fact that she already knew, and a maid is punished for allowing the escape attempt. Rhaenyra doesn't realize that her mistress of whispers is not whispering all the information in her ear. Later, many gold cloaks quit instead of risking themselves.
You forget what this city was. Before I turned this rabble into an army, before I led you out of your squalor and formed you into men.
This weakens the force further, ultimately helping in Ormond's plans. On the coast, Alan finds Corlys hunting the Triarchy raiders who survived the Gullet. He asks his father to return to King's Landing to help with the murders, but Corlys is bitter about the fleet, Driftmark, and the family he lost for Rhaenyra's war. Alan tells him that leaving again will not fix Driftmark or help his sons. Corlys reveals that Tyland survived and is traveling towards Rook's Rest, giving the Blacks a possible lead on Aegon. And speaking of the Burnt King, after Tyland digs a shallow grave for Janos, Aegon, Larys, and Tyland debate on where to go next. Tyland wants the protection of Castle Rock, while Larys still thinks Westeros is too dangerous and wants to set sail for Baraos. Aegon finally makes his decision. He will go into exile in Essos. At Harrenhal, Aemond and Alis are getting close. He insists on leaving to find Vhagar, but Alis reminds him that Rhaenyra has 6 dragons, that there is a bounty on his head, and that walking outside would expose him straight away. They are not the only new couple in Westeros, however, as Aelin and Baela spend time together after surviving the Gullet and searching for Corlys. Their shared grief leads them to kiss. When Gwaine finally reaches Tumbleton, he finds Ormond treating Daeron as a political puppet. Ormond mocks Gwaine for running away, but Daeron privately admits that he hates being used. He begs Gwaine to stay, but the Hightower Knight isn't willing to be around another glory-hungry fool. In their room, Helaena asks Alicent whether the escape plan included Jaehaera. It turns out that Alicent was going to be smuggled away so that they could meet up with her later. But this was a lie. Helaena realizes that her mother was prepared to save the unborn child while leaving her living granddaughter behind. She calls Alicent selfish, and Alicent can't really defend the choice. After Helaena storms off, Alicent notices that her embroidery shows a naked Aemond laying in blood. With Harrenhal behind him, another image of the death she predicted for him last season. But for now, Aemond is very much alive and has recovered from the stab wound. As he readies a horse to find Vhagar, however, a stable boy recognizes him and threatens to expose the prince, so Alis kills him before he can speak.
And what is this game you play?
It's yours to learn, if your spirit is willing.
She then leads Aemon to 5 eggs laid by Dreamfire, revealing that one is still warm and might hatch. Alis talks about ruling Harrenhal together, having children and hatching the warm egg. Aemond kisses her, agreeing to the future she wants. This could have been a romantic moment, if not for the dead body in the stable. Back in the Red Keep, Rhaenyra continues hearing endless requests while avoiding Joffrey, now her eldest surviving son and heir. Her patience is thin, and as every problem demands money, soldiers, or mercy, the things she's barely got. This is when she cuts her hand on the Iron Throne. Those who remember the first season will know that this isn't a good omen for that particular ruler. Outside the keep, Daemon has taken it upon himself to walk the streets disguised as a gold cloak, hoping to lure the secret attackers. If you want a job done, do it yourself. The plan works, and a would-be assassin follows him, but Daemon turns the attack around and demands to know how many people are working against Rhaenyra. The man answers that they're ordinary people from across the 7 kingdoms, with no sign or sigil to identify them, and warns that every attack only drives more people to their cause. Daemon kills him anyway. This is what makes the killers terrifying. They just look like ordinary people with no way to spot them before it's too late. Daemon also catches Ulf in the city, despite being confined to the castle, and beats him for breaking the queen's order. He threatens to take Ulf's eyes if he continues undermining the queen. What is it with the Targaryens and taking people's eyes out? Ulf obviously backs down while Daemon is standing over him, but this leaves him bruised and angrier than before. Men claiming to be Baratheon envoys arrive at Tumbleton with an offer, but Gwaine knows the real Aryan Baratheon looks different and realizes they must be assassins. He kills them before they can reach Daeron, while Ormond vomits because of the blood and smell despite the ruthless image he tries to portray to everyone else. Ormond apologizes to Gwaine and finally shows him some respect, and Gwaine agrees to stay a little longer. At Tumbleton, Hugh can't wait any longer and attacks a cart driver, taking his place so he can enter the city and find his wife, Cat. He promises to take her away and speaks about the honor and status his dragon has given him, but Cat barely recognizes her own husband.
I claimed a dragon. Vermithor, the Bronze Fury. I've been made a knight.
When she refuses to leave with him, Hugh tries to force her to go. Kat asks what has happened to him, and Hugh has no answer. Alicent tries to make one final deal with Rhaenyra. She offers Aemon's location at Harrenhal in exchange for freedom for herself, Helena, and Jaehaera, explaining that Helena has seen him there. Rhaenyra realizes that sending soldiers would make Aemon run away, so she chooses the one person he would never suspect, his mother. She orders Alicent to travel to Harrenhal and kill Aemon herself. Alicent insists that she won't do it, but Rhaenyra doesn't really leave her with a choice.
I cannot leave Helena.
I will keep watch over her until you return.
Kill one child to save another. Rhaenyra is starting to act more like Daemon than Viserys right now. Later, Rhaenyra receives a piece of clothing with a Baratheon sigil and the message, "Kick this dog and it will bite your hand." The warning comes from Ormond, in retaliation for the failed assassination attempt. In the woodland near the coast, after hunting down Triarchy raiders left behind following the Battle of the Gullet, Corlys now tells his smaller crew that they will return to King's Landing. As he does, however, Sir John Roxton and armed raiders surround them. This leaves them outnumbered and nowhere to run. Up until now, the Sea Snake has cheated death several times, but this time his luck might have run out. Inside Helena Targaryen's latest vision, she sees herself standing outside in a yard with the sun rising and a gray horse waiting for her. Before she can find out what it means, Queen Rhaenyra wakes her up. After learning that some of Helena's warnings have come true, the queen believes she's a dreamer and wants to know whether she has seen anything that could help end the war. The problem is, Helena can only remember scattered images and feelings, so she can't tell Rhaenyra exactly what will happen or when. The queen becomes desperate to find out the future for her battles and becomes angry that Helena doesn't know, or just won't say.
Tell me there has been no mistake, that I will prevail as the gods must surely intend. Tell me.
At Harrenhal, Aemond has recovered enough to start training again, but his stab wound is still healing and the visions inside Harrenhal are getting worse. Aemond sees Alicent in the room and she tells him everything he wants to hear. Then things get super uncomfortable as the two start kissing and fall onto the bed together. After that, well, you get the drift. The vision then fades, revealing that Aemond is actually with Alice somehow, and Aemon has managed to top Daemon's Harrenhal visions about his own mother. Just about. After understandably freaking out, he runs into the courtyard and sees Alicent again, only this time it's not a vision. Alicent pretends that she has come to fix their relationship, while secretly looking for a chance to carry out Rhaenyra's order. When she introduces her guard, Adrian Redfort, to their son, Aemond wastes no time in killing him.
Mother, there are secrets here, and I can trust no stranger.
I've heard of children not liking their mother bringing friends home, but this takes it to a whole new level. Near Tumbleton, Ormond learns that the Winter Wolves are only a day away, carrying Criston Cole's severed head on a stick. It gives the Greens a pretty clear warning of what's heading towards them. Ormond, however, doesn't seem worried. It turns out that he's kept Corlys prisoner. He reminds them that the Valyrian family will suffer if he doesn't cooperate. Gwaine warns Daeron that Ormond is starting to sound like Criston. Both men care more about being remembered than keeping their soldiers alive. At the small council, Rhaenyra learns that Daemon has disappeared again and that Adam and Baela have seen Sheepstealer and its supposedly dead rider. Realizing that Daemon could have lied to her, she decides to look for him herself. Back at Harrenhal, Alice watches Alicent closely, clearly knowing that something isn't right. During an extremely uncomfortable meal, Alicent tries to find out who her son's new lover is. Something we all want to know. But it seems like Aemond isn't completely sure about who Alice is either.
She is a lady and a maester of sorts.
Aemond says that his mother will stay with them while they build their house, but Alice doesn't trust her. She believes that Alicent has come to kill him. Obviously we know that's true, but Aemond doesn't believe it. Panicked and terrified of her own son, Alicent quickly runs outside and finds a poisonous nightshade plant. Meanwhile, near Rook's Rest, Aegon, Larys, and Tyland continue looking for a new way out of Westeros. Before they get far, however, they learn that soldiers loyal to Rhaenyra, looking for Tyland and the missing gold, are close. Larys wants to leave, but Aegon is done running, so he and Tyland stay while Larys disappears into the woods, leaving the king to meet his end. Honestly, I don't think anyone is surprised. Meanwhile, Daemon has tracked down his daughter Rhaena. She admits she has been trying to find Vhagar. She thinks killing Aemon's dragon might make up for what happened to Jace.
Instead of dragging her back to King's Landing, Daemon offers to help find Vhagar. It's taken them long enough, but Daemon finally starts acting like her father. Before they can decide what to do next, however, Syrax and Sea Smoke appear overhead. Rhaenyra lands and Daemon tells Rhaena to run away before the queen sees her. Adam gives chase and catches her. Sheepstealer's rider has now been revealed. Rhaena drops to her knees, which upsets Sheepstealer and causes the other dragons to become protective. The wild dragon lashes out at Syrax, turning the standoff into complete chaos. Seasmoke dives in to protect Rhaenyra while Caraxes joins the fight. Sheepstealer claws at Syrax. Seasmoke tears into the wild dragon's side, and Caraxes bites down on its neck. The dragons start biting and clawing at each other while the riders struggle to stay in their saddles. Rhaenyra manages to pull the terrified Rhaena onto Syrax and flies away with her. Daemon stays behind as the badly wounded Sheepstealer escapes into the mist. Daemon could have easily sent Caraxes to finish off the wild dragon, but he lets it go. At Harrenhal, Alicent quickly makes tea with Nightshade. Aemon tells her that Alice doesn't trust her, but Alicent tests how much he trusts his own mother. Of course he drinks it.
Alice.
Idiot.
Alicent doesn't wait around and quickly escapes from the castle, leaving Alice to try and save him. Again. When Daemon returns, Rhaenyra isn't happy. She confronts him with the remains he claimed belonged to Sheepstealer's rider. Daemon admits that he killed an innocent shepherd and used the body to protect Rhaena. He explains that he ignored his daughter for most of her life and couldn't hand her over when she finally needed him. Rhaenyra quickly realizes that Daemon thought she might kill his daughter, which makes the lie even worse. She orders him out of the room, leaving their already difficult marriage in an even worse state. She later turns to Mysaria, who has become the person she relies on whenever Daemon lets her down. Mysaria says that she still believes Rhaenyra should rule, even after everything that has gone wrong. Mysaria then moves closer, and the two women kiss before falling onto the bed together. Well, I'm guessing the next small council meeting is going to be a touch awkward. Back in King's Landing, a soldier delivers a small box to Alan. To his horror, it contains the severed ring finger of his father, Lord Corlys, with the Valerion ring still attached. This confirms that Corlys is alive, but is now a prisoner of Ormond Hightower. Helena's visions continue in the Red Keep. This time, she sees herself giving birth before the baby is given to a soldier. She then sees herself on the back of Dreamfire, inside of the dragon pit, while a group of soldiers charge towards them. As the attackers get closer, Helena orders Dreamfire to burn them. The vision then changes to a peaceful green field, and Helena appears to be living far away from the Iron Throne with her children. The vision then changes. That's right, she doesn't know it yet, but she's seeing the future. Before long, the approaching soldiers find Tyland and Aegon. After weeks of hiding his name, sorting human waste, and being treated like a nobody, Aegon decides that he would rather die openly as a king. Aegon reveals his identity and challenges the soldiers to kill him. The men suddenly stop moving, but it's not Aegon's speech that's frightened them.
Sunfire.
It turns out that Sunfire, the golden dragon, wasn't dead after all. Although one side of its body is badly burned and scarred, Sunfire looks almost as badly injured as Aegon. Aegon can barely believe that his dragon has come back, and at his command, the dragon engulfs the soldiers in dragonfire. The Greens have just regained the dragon. In fact, they have gained two. Outside Tumbleton, Ulf the White is supposed to be taking his turn watching the town for Rhaenyra. Instead, he meets Ormond in secret. Ormond gives him some decent ale, speaks to him with respect, and brings up all the times Rhaenyra and Daemon treated him like an embarrassment. Ulf is already angry about the way they treat him, so Ormond doesn't need to work very hard to turn him against them. He promises Ulf control of Driftmark and the title of Lord of the Tides once Corlys has been removed. Ulf, believing the freedom to drink in taverns and own a castle is worth betraying his people, accepts the offer. When Ormond asks what will happen to his former allies, Ulf says, they will burn. In King's Landing, Rhaenyra receives the one piece of news she really didn't need right now. Aegon is alive. And even worse, so is Sunfire. After spending weeks telling everyone that her rival was dead, Rhaenyra learns that many of the small folk think it's divine intervention and that he has been resurrected to rule the throne.
Rhaenyra starts to panic, but Daemon isn't really worried.
The lesser gods have no say in what is to come. We are the blood of old Valyria.
He tells her that this is the moment where she proves whether she actually has the strength to rule. He pushes the same argument he has been making all season. Westeros understands strength, so Rhaenyra needs to stop worrying about being loved and make everyone afraid to challenge her. This time, she listens. Rhaenyra orders the attack on Tumbleton to begin. Darien can be dealt with there, while Aegon is now personal. She wants to kill him herself. Upon hearing the plan, Baela immediately asks the question Rhaenyra seems to be avoiding. How will they save Corlys? Her grandfather is still being held inside Tumbleton, so attacking the town could get him killed along with everyone else. Rhaenyra coldly admits that there was no plan to rescue him. Baela is furious. Corlys spent years fighting for Rhaenyra, lost his wife, his home, and a lot of his family in the process. And now the queen is apparently willing to write him off. The second saving him becomes inconvenient. Baela tells her that the queen only uses people and throws them away when they're no longer useful. Over in Tumbleton, Ormond also learns that Aegon is alive, but he has an army approaching his walls, so another surviving Targaryen is a problem for another day. His main concern is keeping Tumbleton. Ormond formally knights Darien, giving him the title Darien the Daring, and trying to turn the frightened teenager he raised into the heroic Green Prince his army desperately needs. Mysaria doesn't escape the fallout either. After making plans to force the High Septon to anoint her, she sends Mysaria away from the Red Keep and orders her to leave for Pentos, which is pretty brutal considering they were sleeping together not too long ago. Before leaving, Mysaria crosses paths with Helaena, and finally gives her something nobody else seems willing to offer: the truth. Aegon is alive. Rhaenyra is never going to willingly release Helaena, and waiting patiently inside the Red Keep isn't going to magically make anything better. Back in Harrenhal, Aemond is still recovering from the nightshade Alicent used to poison him. At this point, he has lost all confidence. His mother tried to kill him. Vagar is gone, and he still believes he killed his own brother and king. Alice finally shares the reason why she's been waiting at Harrenhal for so long. Around a century earlier, when the dragon Balerion burned Harrenhal, Alice had a young son who was badly burnt. She did everything she could to save him, and eventually turned to the ancient powers surrounding the Godswood. Sadly, her son died anyway. Alice then tried to die herself, but she learned that whatever she messed with had given her immortality.
That was 100 years past.
It's a long time to be alone.
Back in King's Landing, Helaena is still barely eating. Her imprisonment, pregnancy, and the death of Jaehaerys, and the constant visions of the future have put her in a dark place. Rhaenyra tries to persuade her to eat, but Helaena has stopped being frightened of her. She tells Rhaenyra that everything she now cares about, dragons, power, the throne, and proving herself, has made her ugly. She even says their father would hate what Rhaenyra is becoming. Rhaenyra responds by ordering the guards to force feed her. Helaena is held down while soup is forced into her mouth. Rhaenyra can keep talking about peace and mercy, but force-feeding a pregnant prisoner isn't really a good look. In Tumbleton, Ormond's battle plan shows just how desperate he is to keep the town. He has young boys placed along the walls amongst his soldiers, as human shields. He knows Rhaenyra's dragons could destroy the defenses in minutes, but doing that would mean deliberately burning children in full view of both armies, something that isn't exactly great for a queen's reputation. As Rhaenyra's forces gather at the gates, Gwaine realizes that Ormond's glorious final stand is completely insane, and that it'll get them all killed. To make things worse, the one man Ormond thinks will change the battle in their favor is nowhere to be found. The plan is to have Ulf waiting outside Tumbleton on Silverwing after agreeing to betray Rhaenyra. Instead, he has disappeared. Gwaine and Darien decide to take Corlys to Daemon, who waits outside the town, excited to start this battle. This is Gwaine's last attempt to stop the battle and prevent thousands of lives being lost. He also suggests splitting the realm and letting Darien rule parts of the Seven Kingdoms. Corlys even tries finding a solution.
Name him Lord Paramount of the Reach. Darien will never be king, but he and his dragon can be wardens of the South.
That wasn't what I was offering.
This is when Daemon reveals that Aegon is alive, which pretty much kills any chance of a friendly compromise. And because Corlys has been secretly negotiating with Gwaine, Daemon decides that the Sea Snake is now a prisoner instead. Corlys might be great at escaping death, but he's not so great at escaping cells. Back in Harrenhal, Aemond is woken up by the sound of a dragon, but this isn't another one of his visions. It's the last person he expects to see, Aegon.
I'm alive! Imbecile.
After months of being burned, injured, forced into hiding, and literally shoveling human waste, he's finally standing in front of Aemond again, as a king with a living dragon. His brother begs for his forgiveness, but Aemond says that he should kill him slowly and watch him burn. Aemond ruins his moment by giving up and saying he deserves to die. The king decides that the two of them will fly to Tumbleton, take out Darien and Ormond, and then head over to King's Landing and take back the Iron Throne. Only then will Aemond be forgiven for trying to kill him with dragonfire. Sounds like a good deal if you ask me. Back outside Tumbleton, the Blacks prepare their attack. Oscar Tully explains that they can't just send the dragons in while civilians and children are standing on the walls. Roderick Dustin and his Winter Wolves will lead the first attack. Their job is simple: survive long enough and get in and open the gate. Meanwhile, in King's Landing, Rhaenyra dresses in black armor, wears Viserys' crown, and brings her son Joffrey with her as she travels through the city. On the way, she finally tells Joffrey the secret Viserys once gave her. Aegon the Conqueror's dream is about the Song of Ice and Fire. The thing is, Rhaenyra is starting to believe that she is the Targaryen who is destined to stop the darkness coming from the north. Talk about main character syndrome. At the Great Sept, the High Septon still refuses to anoint her. He crowned Aegon, and now that Aegon has returned alive, the Faith believes that he is the leader the gods chose. Rhaenyra doesn't argue the point anymore, and orders Alan to kill him. Rhaenyra reminds him that they have the blood of old Valyra. Their authority comes from something older and stronger than the Faith of the Seven, and they don't need permission from priests, so Alan does what the Queen asks.
A place of refuge!
Rhaenyra then walks outside and shares the secret that has been carried for generations with the small people. She tells them about the Song of Ice and Fire, how her ancestors survived the doom of Valyra for a reason, and that a terrible winter and an ancient darkness will eventually threaten the entire world. She believes House Targaryen must stop it. Then she takes it even further. Rhaenyra declares herself Rhaenyra the Chosen, and claims that she is the prince that was promised. Before the battle starts, Daemon gives the soldiers one final speech before sending them forward. Rhaenyra has ordered that the innocent people inside Tumbleton should be spared. As for the soldiers, they can be as monstrous as they like. The Battle of Tumbleton finally begins. The Winter Wolves march towards the walls, beating their weapons against their shields as arrows rain down around them. The boys Ormond placed on the battlements are terrified, with some wetting themselves and vomiting. But Ormond keeps everyone in position. Inside the gates of the town, Ulf is still missing. Ormond also finds out that Darien tried to make a deal for peace. This was not part of the Hightower's plan. The Winter Wolves reach the walls and begin climbing. Hightower soldiers dump boiling oil and anything else they can find onto the attackers below. Trenches are ignited, creating walls of fire and trapping the soldiers between the flames and Tumbleton's defenses. But Roderick keeps moving anyway. Hundreds of his men are killed before even reaching the top of the gate. Eventually, Daemon has had enough. The whole reason they avoided using dragons was to protect the children and civilians. But with his army being slaughtered outside the walls, that restraint doesn't last. Daemon mounts Caraxes, and the Hightowers cowardly place the children in front of him. Luckily, most of them run away, but two that stayed get blasted with dragonfire as an entrance into Tumbleton is made. Soldiers are now battling through streets, houses, and burning buildings. Ormond eventually finds Ulf sitting in a latrine, passed out drunk, after helping himself to one too many ales. That's right, the secret weapon is currently unconscious on the toilet. Ormond throws him out and then starts kicking him until he wakes up. He orders him onto Silverwing, but he makes one small mistake. He has shown his true colors. Ulf realizes that all of Ormond's friendliness, expensive alcohol, and promises of Driftmark were probably just a way to use his dragon. Hugh soon turns up to save Cat, abandoning his post at King's Landing. Meanwhile, Darien is preparing to fly into battle on his dragon, but Gwaine stops him, saying he will be killed. At that moment, Ulf flies into battle on Silverwing. At first, Ulf does exactly what he promised. Silverwing swoops over Rhaenyra's troops and burns them with dragonfire. Understandably, the attack catches the Blacks completely by surprise, but then the Greens are also left shocked. As he starts burning the entire city, both armies and the innocent civilians. Daemon is meanwhile fighting through the streets against Sir Jon Roxton. For once, Daemon finds someone actually capable of giving him a serious fight. In fact, Roxton begins gaining the advantage and beats the Targaryen until he is spitting out blood. On the battlements, Roderick finally reaches Ormond. The two commanders fight, and despite being older and already exhausted from the assault, the Winter Wolf manages to injure him. Ormond responds by stabbing him and cutting off Roderick's arm. That should probably finish the fight, except the blood sprays directly into Ormond's mouth. The smell gets to Ormond, and as a man who has the most sensitive stomach in Westeros, he starts gagging and vomiting. Roderick uses the bizarre weakness to his advantage and stabs him before Ulf gets his revenge. While it looks like Roxton is about to finish Daemon off, Silverwing's destruction of the city causes a building to collapse, separating the two. Daemon realizes that it's one of his own dragon riders that is killing the people he came to save. Corlys eventually finds Daemon and tells him the obvious. Ulf has turned on them, and Tumbleton is lost. The rogue dragon rider escapes after causing carnage, and Hugh finally reaches Cat, only to find her dead. Back in King's Landing, Helaena quietly finishes the tapestry she's been working on throughout the season before stepping off the ledge and ending her life. Rhaenyra then sees the smoke of the destroyed Tumbleton. The queen knows that the tapestry is predicting the future, so she studies it. She sees a woman falling from the Red Keep, Tumbleton being burnt by dragonfire, and then, next to that, an image of Rhaenyra on the Iron Throne surrounded by fire. Far away from King's Landing, Alicent sees a group of blue butterflies fly into the air. In that moment, she knows something has happened, and this is Helena's way of saying goodbye. And that's where Season 3 ends. With Aegon and Sunfire alive, Aemond back beside his brother, Tumbleton destroyed, Darien missing, Ulf gone rogue, Corlys a prisoner of his own people, Helaena dead, and Rhaenyra turning her back on everything her father taught her. Season 4, which will bring the entire House of Dragon story to a close, will no doubt be epic. Alrighty, thanks for watching, guys. If you want to watch more Game of Thrones related content, check out these videos here. And until then, please like, subscribe, comment, do all those other awesome things you people do, and I will see you next time.